With a click of my tongue, I point a finger down the street and narrow my green eyes at the man in front of me. For the last time, you need to go around to the back entrance. I'm trying to run a business here. The man grumbles as he turns away, and I sigh in exasperation. This has been happening all afternoon. I just can't catch a break. When I turn back to my customers, a woman and her teenager daughter who had just walked in off the street, I attempt to plaster on an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry for the interruption, I say smoothly, pacing over to where they're browsing through a rack of formal dresses. Where were we? We'd like to have a dress specially made for my Claire. The Academy ball is 3 months away, the woman says, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Claire ignores her mother completely, instead devoting her attention to the cell phone she holds in front of her nose. Clanner Academy. I used to be a student there. The Academy Ball is the highlight of the year, I say, fondly remembering the event. And it's the truth. The Academy Ball is a dream. The main hall is lavishly decorated in the chosen theme of the year. Only the most well-known DJs are hired for the event, and all the students will be desperate for the latest fashion in ball gowns and tuxedos, no expense spared. It would be an amazing opportunity for me to bring in new businesses to the boutique, and one I should take full advantage of. Then we need something unique, but styled in the latest trends, the woman continues while Claire taps away on her phone. And I'd be happy to pass your business details on to our friends, should we like what you produce. I nod, understanding her meaning perfectly. I'll need to be at the top of my game if I intend to snag the kind of clientele with this particular event can bring me. We can start by looking at some different styles and fabrics. Then I can draw up a couple of designs based on what you like. Claire finally looks up from her screen, and I smiled at her, earning an interested tilt of the head in return. After that, all I'll need to do is take your measurements and put it all together. It'll be finished long before the ball comes around. That sounds wonderful, Claire's mother says, her fingers stippled in satisfaction. When can we start? Now, if you like. I have some fabric samples over here, if you'll follow me. I start to walk over to the rack, holding my formal fabrics, stopping only when the click of heels doesn't echo from behind me, and I realize I'm not being followed. Oh, you know what? I think we'll come back later, Claire's mother says, hurriedly, ushering her daughter in the direction of the door. I've just remembered that we have an appointment we can't miss. Oh, can I can pencil you in for another. The pair of them hurry past me and exit the shop, and with my brows dipped in confusion, I turn to find what has spooked my customers. 2 men, large and burly, with beards all the way down to their chests, have stepped into the store, looking around in confusion. I don't believe this. Annoyance washes over me in a wave, and I storm over to the pair, hands on my hips as I stare them down. If you're looking for the basement, you need to go around to the back of the building. I must have said this with more attitude than I meant, because the men looked taken aback, one of them holding his hands up in front of him apologetically. "Excuse us, miss. Didn't mean to disturb you." I blink dumbly as they exit the boutique, the bell ringing above the door as they leave. Wow, I didn't expect them to leave as easily as that. Most of the men who had come in here had seemed confused, but were harmless nonetheless. One or two had gotten mouthy with me, but had swiftly found themselves directed to the exit. The one thing they all have in common, however, is that they're scaring away my business. And I'm not going to tolerate it any further. I circle around the counter and pick up my phone from beneath it, tapping a finger on the screen and scrolling through my contacts. I find Gray's number easily enough, a recent addition to my phone book, and hit the icon to dial his number. Holding the phone to my ear, it starts ringing. So when a familiar voice rings out from the back of the store, I end the call and pause. "He's here." I hurry over to the back entrance of the boutique and pull open the door, finding the culprit in question and a couple other guys chatting near the back door of the building. The three of them turn at the sound of my arrival, and Gray grins at me when he turns, completely oblivious to my annoyance. "Hazel, how are you today?" I need to speak with you," I say, ignoring his questions. "Okay." Gray blinks at me a couple of times, as if he can't possibly fathom what I have to be angry about. Then he turns to his acquaintances, giving the closest one a pat on the shoulder. "Tell them I'll be down in a few. Don't start without me." "Aye, aye, boss." I crook an eyebrow at that. "Boss? So what can I do for you?" Gray paces over, the look on his face so smug it sends a fresh wave of fury rolling through me. "You can start by telling your friends not to come into the store. They're scaring away my customers." His eyes widen, taken aback by my sudden explosion of anger. "Oh," he rubs the back of his neck anxiously. "I did ask them to use the back door, but some of them aren't too good with instructions. Tiny brains, you know." I held a breath, ignoring the smirk that tilts his lips and only fuels me further. I was in the middle of styling a customer for the Academy ball when your oafish friends walked in and scared them away. Do you have any idea what this could cost me? It's completely... "The Academy ball," he snorts, cutting my rant short. "You mean that unnecessary pompous show of wealth the Academy puts on every year?" It's a prestigious event, actually, and an important tradition." Clanner Academy knows nothing about tradition. His eyes turn fierce, a coldness creeping over his face. "The students are a bunch of spoiled rich kids who have never had to lift a finger in their lives. They always have been and always will be." My breath escapes in a shaky exhale. I don't dare tell him that it was my school. The boutique needs the business, I explained, ignoring his jabs. The parents of the students have a lot of money, yes, but they also have influence. It's a good way for me to get my work out here. I didn't think of it that way, he admits, pulling his bottom lip between his teeth as he thinks it over. When he fixes me with those stormy gray eyes again, they're softer than they were before. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I nod, my breath steadying and my gaze dropping as the anger slowly begins to ebb. Hey. He steps forward and calms me with a hand on my arm, squeezing gently. I'm sorry, okay? I never meant to make things difficult for you. Our eyes locked, and I believe him. And then a swift pang of guilt hit me as I remember how difficult I've made things for him. Just make sure your buddies remember this time, I say with a tired sigh. Or I'll hold you personally responsible for any loss of business. Oh, Gray's eyes light up at once, his interest piqued. And how do you intend to punish me? His eyes glint with mischief, and a disbelieving sound escapes me before I can stop it. I'm really not into the mood for this. I'm sorry. He holds up his hands and laughs softly, quite obviously not sorry in the least. I'll keep them in line. Thank you. You're welcome, Hazel. Are there any other grievances you'd like to discuss? I narrow my eyes at him, though he simply grins smugly in return. Not right now, but the night is still young. He huffs a laugh, but I'm far from happy. Once his friends stop treating my boutique as their own personal go-between, then I'll be satisfied. I cross my arms over my chest. Gray looks me over, a hidden grin playing on his lips. It's unnerving. Why are you looking at me like that? He attempts to smother his grin with a hand, but fails miserably, continuing to stare at me as if I were a shiny new toy. No reason. I raise an eyebrow at him, suspicious, though a voice from outside grabs my attention before I can say something else. What do you mean I can't come in? This is my best friend's place, you walking tree. I glance past Gray to see Sarah staring down a tall man just outside the back door, fire in her eyes. Pushing my way through, I head towards this exit, preparing to step in before Sarah gets herself crushed. This is a private gathering, and I've never seen you here before, the man says to her, and I want to facepalm myself in his stead. I would have remembered if I had. What is that supposed to mean? Just that you're very pretty, the man starts. Sarah looks not anything but flattered at the compliment, and the man quickly turns flustered. No, wait, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I'm sorry. Jed, it's okay, mate. You can let her in. Gray steps in, amusement practically dripping from his voice when he leans in and whispers to his friends. Sarah looks less than pleased to see the phantom again in the flesh after all these years. Her lips practically disappear into a disapproving narrow line. She turns her gaze away from Gray and shoves her way past the two conversing men. You're hopeless, you know what? What is this? I ask in exasperation as I push between them, gesturing widely at the stranger. Who is he? My name is Jed. The tall man introduces himself. That's when I finally recognize him. Back in the school, he had come to the academy to look for me, and my gang had beat him to a bloody pulp because of it. The last time we met, we didn't end on very friendly terms either. Luckily, it doesn't seem like he's paying much mind to me. He's my best mate, Grace says, drawing my attention. He makes sure no suspicious folk come wandering in here, trying to join our game. I have half a mind to tell him that all of them are suspicious, but I stop myself. I thought you said you were playing board games. We are. So you're telling me you need a bodyguard for a board game night? Yep. Sarah scoffs, rolling her silver eyes at the pair of them. What a loaf of... Well, we've taken up enough of your time, Gray interrupts with a clap of his hands, grabbing Jed by the arm. Come on, Jed, let's get down there before they riot. I watch them leave in silence. What just happened? Sarah turns to me, her eyes wide in disbelief. I have no idea. I rub at my temples, desperate for some peace and quiet after the encounter. Why were you using the back door anyway? I thought it might be better than coming into the store while you're open. Though I never expected to be met by a 7-foot mountain man guarding the place, she says with a scowl. Chuckling, I agree with her. Jed was quite the built man. I'm just about to close the store. Are you hungry? Starving. She grins at the prospect of eating food, and I'm not surprised in the least. I wave her towards the stairs to my apartment while I head back to the boutique. I'll meet you upstairs in a few. An hour later, Sarah and I are sitting on my sofa, 2 large glasses of wine on the coffee table in front of us as we dig into the pasta Alfredo I've just whipped together. There's a show on TV, some trashy reality show about a group of singles left alone on a super yacht, and we leave it playing in the background while we chat. So, any other dates coming up? I ask Sarah, who makes a face at me as she chews. No, but I found this new app that matches you up with someone based on your computer browser history. It sounds promising. I stare at her, unsure if that was a joke or not. When she says nothing else, I realize she's completely serious. So you'll be matched with someone who enjoys gluten-free baking and funny videos of dogs then. She gives me a withering glare, and I laugh, knowing I'm totally right. Why don't you just, I don't know, meet someone the old-fashioned way? right, because that's worked so well for me in the past, she says sarcastically, taking another bite of pasta. Or just sign up for a reality television show. They look like they're having fun. I point at the TV and Sarah snorts, dismissing the idea. Then she stops suddenly and grabs the remote, turning down the volume and tilting her head to the side. Do you hear that? I pause and listen. I don't hear anything. I think it came from the basement. It was kind of like never mind. She shrugs and turns the volume back up to normal, resuming the show, and I continue eating. I still can't believe you let the Phantom rent out your basement, she says with a disbelieving laugh. I never knew you had a death wish. I don't. I felt sorry for him, that's all. Why? I hesitate a second before putting my half-empty plate down on the coffee table and turning to Sarah, preparing myself to come clean with her. There's something I never told you. She raises an eyebrow, and I swallow thickly around the nervous lump in my throat. Back in high school, the night of the challenge, I didn't get pulled aside by the cops like I said I did. Okay? The truth is that I bailed. I explained everything to Sarah, how I had helped Gray the first night we met, how I tried to cover it up with a dozen times after that, knowing the gang would rain bloody hell down on me if they find out, and how I called the cops, got Gray arrested, and kicked out of school. That was the reason I agreed to rent my basement to him. To make amends in whatever small way I could. When I finish speaking, Sarah stares at me wide-eyed. Please say something, I say quietly, folding under the weight of her stare. I can't believe you didn't tell me any of this. I hesitate for a moment, knowing that I should have come clean with her a long time ago. I was afraid of what would happen if the gang found out. You know, they wouldn't have taken it well. I cringe at this half-truth, knowing I was scared of losing Sarah most of all. I'm unsure if I should reveal how much I had doubted our bond. I guess afterwards it didn't matter much because I left them anyway. Screw the bang, she fires back, her temper rising. I would have had your back, Hazel. What about your family's back? I knew what the rumors were. Sarah looks inclined to argue, but for once she holds her tongue. I didn't want to put you in difficult position, but I can't pass up the chance to make things right. What's done is done. I hope you can forgive me. My phone beeps, interrupting the conversation. I glance at the email notification icon. When I open the app on my phone, I immediately notice the sender, and my face falls. That's weird, I mumble, tapping the screen to open the message. What is it? An email from Nikki. Sarah gives me a disbelieving look, pulling her legs up under her as she turns to me. I thought you two weren't friends anymore. We're not. I mean, I haven't spoken to him since graduation. What does it say? I scan the email briefly before clearing my throat and relaying it to her. Dear Hazel, I know it's been a long time since we last spoke. I'm sorry we never and kept in touch. I know you didn't want anything to do with the old gang when was over, but I wish I had tried harder. I'm a teacher at the academy now. How weird, what is that? I heard you got into the fashion business. My students are putting on a play next month, and I wondered if you might be willing to help us out with the costumes. Let me know if you're interested, and we can work out a time to talk. It would be good to hear from you after all this time. Angel, Nikki. Silence stretches between us, only the sound of the TV in the background cutting through the quiet. Eventually, Sarah lets out a long breath. Well, yeah. What are you going to do? I think for a moment, still reeling from the sudden blast from the past before I speak. I don't know. On one hand, it could be a good opportunity to show off my designs. When I trail off, Sarah nudges me with her sock-clad toe. But I let out a heavy sigh, weighing up my options. But I don't want to get dragged back into my old life again. Not now that I have the boutique and responsibilities. And Gray, you are going to tell him who you are, aren't you? She questions. I don't know. Would it be terrible if I didn't? She gives me a disbelieving look, as if I just asked if she thought I should have my feet and her hands switched. Yeah, after what happened to him, don't you think the least you could do is offer him an explanation? Actually, I think it would be kinder of me not to bring up old wounds. I say as a joke, but the look of guilt on my face gives me away in an instant. We can't do it, Sarah. I know I have to tell him someday, but it isn't today. Sarah sighs, and I know she doesn't agree with me, but it's not her decision to make. It's your choice, Hazel. All I'm saying is that one day something might happen that's out of your control. I mean, think about the... Sarah stops again and presses the mute button on the remote, her head cocked to the side. You seriously don't hear that? I shrug, shaking my head. I have no idea what she's talking about. What does it sound like? Like banging and groaning? She says in confusion. Are you sure you're not just hearing things? She pokes her tongue at me, but then raises an eyebrow. Grace said they were using the basement for board games, right? But what if that's just the cover? What if they're doing something else? It's not like the thought hadn't crossed my mind. Board games must just be an euphemism for something else. Who knows? Seeing all those sketchy and muscular figures entering the basement doesn't dispel the fact. Gray had a reputation for trouble back in the day, so it's plausible that he could be up to something. And he did want to rent out the basement pretty bad. What do you know about Gray? She asks. Absolutely nothing, I reply. She gives me this look, like she's formulating something in her mind. Can't enter the basement, huh? Nope, he's got the keys. It's his domain. She starts to chew on her nails, deep in thought. So you've got the phantom in your basement, doing who knows what. I got that right? I nod sheepishly. What if we follow him? Sarah suggests. Huh? I exclaim. You want to follow him around? You want to straight up stalk him? Oh, come on. He's the one doing shady stuff in the basement. I want to make sure he's not doing anything illegal, you know. Make sure your boutique is off the hook. Sarah has got a point. I am a bit apprehensive though. It feels like I'm going back to my roots, where I'd wait up for some riversider at the end of the school day. I do have his address on the contract he signed for renting the basement. We could wait until he leaves tomorrow and trail him. She nods, a smile pulling at the corner of her mouth. I should have known the idea would be right up her alley. I like the sound. I like the way you think. The next morning, Sarah and I linger behind a couple of trees near Gray's address, waiting for him to make an appearance. I adjust the oversized sunglasses that sit on my nose, hoping my disguise would work in case they'd notice me. With a sigh, I return to tapping away on my phone while we wait. I've just crushed another level on Candy Crush when a familiar voice gets my attention and Gray finally emerges from his house. Crap, that other guy is with him, Sarah points out, and I immediately notice Jet's hulking form. They seem to be having a casual conversation. I sure hope they won't be returning to the basement on a weekend. Otherwise, this whole trailing plan will fall apart. Luckily, they start walking into the opposite direction of Raindrop. Keeping a healthy distance, we follow this pair as they head down the street. It starts off like any normal day shopping in the city, I suppose. They stop to get a coffee, call into the pharmacy, and grab a bite to eat. Sarah and I sit at a cafe across the street, sipping on a couple of smoothies and impatiently waiting for them to finish their food and move on. We've conveniently placed a couple of menus to hide our faces, and eventually I grow tired of peeking over the top of them. Time drags on, and I'm just about to suggest we give up when Sarah nudges me to get my attention. Look, I follow her, pointed finger, and my eyes widen when I notice the shop that Gray and Jet had just walked into. I let out a groan. It's the... Aha! She exclaims confidently, making my eyes bulge out. You think so? Well, let's follow them and find out. Sarah grabs me by the arm excitedly, and I'm forced to follow along. I'm hesitant to enter the shop, but I know it's our best chance of finding out what Gray and his friends have been up to in my basement. When we enter the shop, we hide down an empty aisle, peeking around the sides to catch a glimpse of the guys. We find them eventually, Jet flicking through a few magazines on a rack and Gray in the aisles next to ours. They've split up, Sarah whispers. You keep an eye on Jet. I'll follow Gray, I instruct, earning a nod before she slinks off. I turn and walk casually to the end of the aisle, trying to be quiet but not obvious. Brightly colored packages line the shelves on either side of me, and once or twice I do a double take, baffled by some of the items the shop offers. I'm especially surprised when I peek down the aisle that Gray is currently in. Whips, gags, handcuffs. Oh God, is he into these kind of fetishes? Gray has something in his hands, and I lean around further to try and get a better look, and knock over an entire aisle of toys. I can feel my stomach fill with anxiety as I watch the boxes clatter onto the floor. With a stifled yelp, I sprint away from the scene, not staying to see if Gray had noticed anything. Slipping down the end aisle, I lean back against the shelf and let out a breath of relief. I seem to have made it away undetected. After catching my breath, I risk a peek around the corner, seeing the various toys scattered over the floor, but no sign of Gray. That was embarrassing, but I also feel guilty knocking over some products and not staying behind to pick them up. Hello, Hazel. Ah! Clutching my chest, I turn to find Gray standing next to me. My heart hammers in my ears like a drum. What are you doing here? He asks me in this neutral tone. He gives me a suspicious look, and on instinct I grab the item closest to me, holding it up and saying boldly, I'm shopping. Can't the grown woman shop for toys in peace? Gray snickers, his eyes landing on whatever I'm currently holding in my hand. I look down, realizing to my mortification that I picked up an enormous neon pink. I think they have bigger ones in the back. My face flushes red, my cheeks flaming hot as I quickly put the item back on the shelf, knocking over a few others in the process. Like a fool, I scramble to keep them upright before a domino effect knocks them all off. Gray laughs even harder, amused by my reaction. Not knowing what else to do, I walk away from the aisle. Gray's laughter dies down as he catches up to me, giving me a much sterner look. What are you really doing here? Fine, I give up. I was following you. I expect Gray to be mad or maybe even amused, but instead he lets out a dramatic sigh and leans against one of the shelves. I see what's happening here, he says slowly, his eyes trailing the floor. You do? Yep. I really don't know how I never noticed it before now. He sighs again, and my stomach drops. I say nothing, too afraid of giving myself away. When he takes a step towards me, I suck in a breath. It's obvious, isn't it? You've fallen for me. I can hear a pin drop in the background as my mind temporarily blanks out. He thinks what now? Excuse me? It's alright, Hazel. I mean, you have good taste, after all. My eyes widen in horror as he shrugs and gives me a tight smile. I start awkwardly, trying to reject the notion I've been following him because I'm secretly in love with him. I'm not that kind of stalker, I'm a different one. Okay, even in my head, that sounds bad. A bark of laughter bursts from him, and I realize at once that he's only teasing me. I fold my arms over my chest and pout, unimpressed. That's not funny, I grumble. Oh, it's certainly amusing for me, alright, he says with a low chuckle. Now, if my devilishly good looks and charming personality haven't won you over, then why were the two of you following me? I rack my brain, trying to come up with an acceptable excuse. I can't just openly come out and say that Sarah and I were worried he was lying about how he was using the basement. We were just trying to find out more about you. You spend a lot of time in my basement, after all. His face softens a little as he lets out a breath, nodding as though that makes sense. If you want to know something, all you have to do is ask. I pause for a moment, thinking about it. It can't be that easy, can it? Alright, I'll ask. Why did you come into this store? He gives me a sly grin, shoving his hands in his pockets. Because I knew the two of you were following us. You're not exactly subtle, you know. My eyes widen slightly. He noticed this all along? Was he just making us go out on a wild goose chase? I didn't think you were brave enough to follow us in here, he finishes. I make a face at him, wondering if he's telling the truth or it's just another cover. Sarah's words about running rings through my mind. Well, we weren't going to let this job stop us. He presses out a short chuckle, and I can almost see that the cogs in his head working to come up with a comeback. But then he just looks at me, that boyish, crooked grin tilting the sides of his lips. Well, if you entered the store, it would be a shame to walk out of here empty-handed, though, wouldn't it? Gray scans the nearby shelves, plucking a rectangular box from one and handing it to me. Here, I recommend this one. Have fun. You look like you need it. He saunters off before I've even looked at the box, but when I finally do, I realize he handed me a purple vibrator, and my eyes widen at his nerve. Gray! I storm down the aisle just in time to see him following Jed out the front door. My face must look beet red, but he throws me a wink from over his shoulders and exits the store, his laughter echoing behind him. I'm so embarrassed.